Now, the leak of a top-secret military discussion over providing missiles to Ukraine is becoming murkier. While Berlin is trying to downplay the situation, the British Foreign Secretary dashed off to the German capital even after it was revealed by the leaks that British troops are operating with the Ukrainians on the battleground. Now, speculations is rife over what Russia really knows. Has the Kremlin been eavesdropping on other such top-secret discussions too? Watch this next report and know why these leaks could just be a tip of the iceberg.
Spies have a formidable reputation. They infiltrate deep into enemy ranks and gather intelligence to weaken their adversary. It's an age-old game of one-upmanship, and right now the world is witnessing a masterful exhibition. A spy operation that has left Germany cold. At the heart of this spy op is a 38-minute call. German officers are reportedly discussing weapons for Ukraine and also a potential strike by Kyiv on a bridge in Crimea. Only this time, their discussions did not remain secret. The Russian media released the recording, and the intercept is alarming. The participants are discussing the delivery of Taurus cruise missiles to Kyiv. A prospect Chancellor Olaf Scholz has publicly denied. They're also talking of how France and Britain are delivering their own cruise missiles to Ukraine with shorter ranges. Berlin is now trying to contain the fire. It is passing the blame for the leak on an individual officer.
The reason that the phone call could still be recorded in the ranks of the Air Force is due to an individual application error. Not all applicants adhered to the secure dialing procedure as prescribed. According to current knowledge, data was leaked from the participant in Singapore. He was connected via an unauthorized connection, that is virtually via an open connection.
The leaks have also frayed nerves in London. British troops working with Ukrainians are exposed, and behind the scenes there is much activity to pin the blame. Berlin's former intelligence chief August Hanning warns more NATO secrets may be compromised. He also says what is revealed may only be the tip of the iceberg. The Kremlin claims the recording shows Germany's armed forces discussing plans to launch strikes on Russian territory. It also mocks Scholz, asking if he is in control of the situation. The Taurus missiles can reach twice as far as Storm Shadow and Scalp missiles. They could even enable Ukraine's reach as far as Moscow. The recording also underscores Scholz's reluctance to let Germany get directly involved in the Ukraine war, or prompting an escalation of hostilities. Amidst all this, Ukraine waits for weapons in the face of escalated ferocity of Russian attacks on the front lines. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Joachim Bitterlich is the former German ambassador to NATO and former European diplomatic and security advisor to German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. He's now joining us live from Paris. Mr. Bitterlich, welcome to the show. Berlin blames Taurus call leak on officer logging via an insecure Singapore hotel line. Many critics argue that Berlin is trying to look for excuses. How is Germany going to get itself out of this mess?
Well, it's a certain mess, you're right. And Berlin has only one choice, let's say, to contain the damage. The damage is existing, and probably what Pistorius, the German defense minister, has told to the press is the right version at the end of the day. But it opened a flank to Russian propaganda, not only against Germany, because against all the Western allies. For the moment concentrated on Germany, because the Russians think the Germans are, let's say, the most reluctant partner in the Western world with regards to support of Ukraine. And therefore they try to, let's say, to put a certain pressure on the Germans, let's say, to feel guilty and to, let's say, to reduce their assistance as asked for, let's say, the extremists in German politics on the left and on the right side. But I think the Germans will stick to the goal to continue the support of the Ukraine in this field. By the way, we have forgotten totally, the whole story has been launched, and therefore the Russians were putting in this field by Macron. by the French president, who has been talking at the beginning of a week without any need and against, let's say, classical French attitudes about ground troops in Ukraine, and that's refused by the great majority of European and NATO allies.
Talking about allies, Mr. Bitterlich, allies of Germany are very angry with Germany, and they are now giving Germany a tough time. What will be the impact of this leak to the ongoing war, and especially for Ukraine?
I think rapidly forgotten. Rapidly forgotten. The Germans have been presenting their excuses on the story, and they will, together with the allies, with the British or the French, try to forget rapidly the story. What they can't stop is, let's say, the Russian propaganda, and this is normal. It's a sad story, okay, but it's a certain crisis of trust, if you want, but I think a bit exaggerated by the media in the last 2 days.
All right.
And you have the risk of listening third parties, not only the US, but the Chinese too, the Russians too, and the Russians do, let's say, utmost efforts, let's say, to get some news in this field that could help them, let's say, to reinforce their propaganda with regard to the Ukraine and to split, especially Western allies. But I think will not be a success story at the end of the day.
Mr. Bitterlich, moving away from all the propaganda and talking about Russia now, Russia claims German military leak proves Western involvement in Ukraine. There is also speculation that the Kremlin could be privy to other high-profile leaks. Your reaction?
You can never exclude it. What August Hanning has been saying, well, I understand him as a former intelligence chief in Germany, but it's not impossible. There could be other leaks in the Western world, because the Western world is, to some extent, let's say, too open, too transparent. And this opens, let's say, certain, misinterpretation or wrong interpretation of the attitudes of one or the other. It's true. And you can't avoid it at the end of the day.
Finally, Mr. Bitterlich, we do understand that the British Foreign Secretary is headed to Germany, and the British government is downplaying its involvement in these leaks. What do you think about the British Foreign Secretary dashing to Berlin to actually counter these accusations?
Well, I think it's right that allies talk to each other and discuss it in order to reduce, to contain damages. It's clear. And I understand him. But what the Germans have been telling, it's a matter of facts. It's not, let's say, something invented. It's true that the British have certain forces to place in the Ukraine in order to protect the embassy and in order to help the Ukrainians in training. It's a matter of truth to some extent. And the same applies probably, in my eyes, to the French. Not to the Germans, who refuse absolutely to be present in Ukraine. And therefore, I think, again, this will be a matter of some days where the Russians are able, let's say, to produce a certain, let's say, crisis of trust. But it's limited in my eyes. And you will see in 2 or 3 days it will be forgotten if the Russians do not find, let's say, another leak in the Western world.
All right. I've been talking to Ambassador Joachim Bitterlich. Ambassador, thank you very much for talking to us today.
A pleasure as always.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.